Hello and welcome to a tutorial on the color wheel that we're going to be doing with our watercolors. First thing is you're going to just get your sketchbook out and we're going to divide a piece of paper into 12 parts. So step one, you can take a ruler or any flat edge. You can use the edge of a book, draw a line down the center, draw another line down the opposite. So we've got a T. Okay, this next part, I need to divide all of these into threes. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but I'm just gonna make this to where it's one here and here. You've gotta do that to all of them. So, one here, again, doesn't have to be perfectly spaced, we just need a space. So, okay, another here. Here. Okay, so that should give you 12. So just double check and make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so I've got 12 squares. So now I need to label them in order of the color wheel. So we're gonna start with yellow. I'm gonna put mine here. The next one over would be yellow, green. Can you see that? It's probably upside down a little bit. That means this one is green. So I'm gonna just rotate my sketchbook as I go. This would be blue, green, blue, blue, violet, or blue purple. I like to say violet. This one's violet, red violet, red, red orange, oh, I spelled orange wrong, O-R-A-G. Okay, then this one is orange. And this is yellow orange. Okay, so when you're looking at your color wheel, red, yellow, and blue are your primary colors. To mix all the other colors on this wheel, those are the only three you need. So if you're looking at two primary colors, so let's look at red and yellow. When you mix those two together in equal parts, you end up with orange. So the primary colors make one secondary color. So mixing two primaries equals a secondary color. Now the colors between the secondary color and the primary color, so we've got red and red-orange. So if I mix red and, if I mix red and orange together, I end up with red-orange. So it's basically a red tint of orange. Okay, the same thing happens when I mix orange and yellow together. I should get a tint of yellow-orange. Okay, so those are the tertiary colors. So we have primary, actually I'm going to write it over here on the side. Primary colors, red, yellow, and blue. Secondary colors, orange, green, and violet. And then the tertiary colors. Those are all of your colors with two names. So red, orange, and I'm just gonna put initials RO for red, orange, YO for yellow, orange, YG for yellow, green, BG for blue, green, BV for blue, violet, RV for red, violet, oh, and I think that's all of them. Okay, so we're working with primary, secondary, and tertiary colors. Now, with your watercolor set, I know yours is a little different than this one. I just happen to have this one from last year. We're actually only going to work with red, yellow, and blue. So actually, let me get palettes you guys have. Okay, here we go. So these are the palettes you guys have. So you're gonna start by just looking at the red, the yellow, and the blue. Now, if you have one of these palettes, I think some of the people at home have them, I would say use this red, whatever's the closest to red, whatever's the closest to yellow, and whatever's the closest to a blue. So I'd probably go with this. This is actually a little bit pink, so each palette's gonna be slightly different, but the same rules apply. If I mix this pinky color with yellow, I'm gonna get an orange. If I mix that pinky color with the blue, I'm gonna get a violet. So you can work with whatever color palette that you have at home, or if you have it in the class. Okay, so you need water. You need your paintbrushes. You need a paper towel. You need your watercolors. And you need your sketchbook. So I'm going to use one of these bigger brushes. And what we're going to do is we're just going to start with yellow. So the best way to do that, you get some water on your paintbrush just by dipping it. And without like shaking it off or anything like that, I'm going to move it over to my palette. And I'm going to put it on my yellow and just let it set for just a second because it's got to rehydrate because these are all dried out. So I'm going to swirl it around just a little bit, and I can already tell it's loaded on my brush a little bit. So I'm going to find my yellow square, and I'm going to start on the outside edge of it painting. So you're going to have your brush fully loaded on the outside edge, and you're just going to really make that really dark there. Load your brush just like once, and then paint down as far as you can with just that one load of your brush. And notice that it's getting lighter as we go down because we're running out of paint. So that's actually good because we're learning how to create different values within each color. So with the yellow, it's a little bit harder to tell, but we want it to be darker on the edge and fade to lighter. So I'm going to go back and put another little layer on my yellow back here. And once the paper dries, I can do a second coat. Okay, I know that all of you guys have orange, but I don't want you to use that orange. I want you to mix. Okay, so on the other side of your paint palette, you've got the little lid or some kind of surface. I want you to move over some of your yellow to a spot. Okay. Wash my brush out really good in between because now I want to add some of that red. I'm going to mix that up. And that's going to be my orange color. Now if I'm looking at this one, it actually looks like it's got a little more red to it. So I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to move a little bit over, wash my brush again, and add a little more of the yellow to it to make it look orange. Okay, now that looks yellow-orange to me. So I'm going to move some of that over, some of my red-orange over, and I should end up with a pretty close orange. Let's see, maybe a little bit more red, a little bit orange. Okay, so now I've already mixed 3 colors that I need. So don't be upset if you didn't get the exact color first, but now I can see this definitely looks like yellow-orange, this definitely looks like orange, and this is red-orange. So I have those slots on my color wheel. So I'm going to start with my yellow-orange because it's right next to my yellow. And I'm going to load up my brush with that color, just paint the outside edge, and then fill in the rest of the space. That's really thin, so I'm going to have to do a couple of coats of that. Okay, but I'm going to go ahead and move on. I'm going to move on to orange. Now, you're probably wondering, you should wash your brush, right? Normally, yes, but since I'm going from yellow-orange to orange, there's not that much of a difference. So I'm not going to wash my brush because I already have those colors on my brush. So I'm going to go to my orange section, start on the outside, kind of work my way in. But it looks like I'm running out. So I'm going to have to make another batch of that. So I'm going to go with my red. Now remember that I needed a little more yellow because it's kind of a soft color. So a little more yellow to make it more of an orangey. And that's still a little too red, so I'm going to go more yellow. And now that looks like I've got a good orange. So you'll just have to practice color mixing a little bit. It's pretty fun. It's like the science of art, color mixing. It's like chemistry. So the big deal is you have to start training your eye to see the colors. So not just knowing, okay, I mixed red and yellow together, that gives me orange, but knowing, okay, what does this color look like? Does it look more red? Does it look orange? Does it look more yellow? And just make sure each color looks slightly different. I decided to add a little more red to my red orange to make sure that it looked different from my orange. Paint that in. Now the colors go on kind of pastel, really thin. That's okay, because what you can do is after it dries, you can do a second coat, and that second coat gets darker. So actually this part, my yellow is actually pretty dry now. It doesn't take that long. So I'm gonna go back to my yellow. I'm gonna do another coat on there to make it darker. Oh, and that looks so much better. So watercolor is all about dyeing the paper. Okay, I'm gonna go back and do my yellow orange again. So I'm gonna remix and put that back on so I can see it a little better. Okay, go back to my orange and paint that on. And honestly, I need to wait on my red orange because it's still pretty wet. What's gonna happen is if you paint on a wet piece of paper, eventually the paper's gonna beat up. So if I sat there and just kept brushing on this, I'll notice there's little balls of paper coming up. It's because when the paper's wet, you're starting to kind of disintegrate it. So you wanna give it a chance to dry, then get back to it. So for now, I'm gonna skip my red orange and I'm gonna start on my red because I'll go back and redo a red orange coat whenever it dries. Okay, so I've got my red. Ooh, that's pretty. Okay, got red violet next. So what color do I add to make red violet? Oh, someone said blue. Okay, good. Okay, so I'm gonna take some of my red. I'm gonna put it in a clean spot on my palette. Okay, because you don't wanna get any yellow in that because that would not be the right color. I'm gonna get some of my blue, just a little bit, and mix that up. That looks like a pretty good violet to me. So I'm gonna skip my red violet and go ahead and paint my violet on. Because if you accidentally make a color that you need anyway, go ahead and use it before you add other colors to it. So I already knew that one step away I had violet, so I'm just gonna go ahead and paint my violet. Now I need to be a little more conscious of putting more red in this time because that one had a little too much blue. I'm gonna wash my brush real quick. It's really easy to wash watercolor brushes. Tiny bit of blue. Looking at that, it looks pretty red violet, but I think I'm gonna add just a little more red. Okay. Here we go, beautiful. And you can see the difference in the colors here. Okay. Wash my brush. I'm actually just gonna go ahead and add a lot of blue to my red violet so I can take it in the other direction. So now I've got a blue violet. And that looks too blue. Now that I put it down, I'm gonna put some more red in that. Okay, there we go, that's better. Put my blue violet down. Okay, wash my brush really good. I'm gonna move on to my blue. Remember, you don't have to mix anything for blue because it's a primary color. Ooh, it's so pretty. Might be my favorite color. Okay, I'll find a new spot. I'm gonna move some blue over. So to get blue-green, it's gonna be blue with a little bit of yellow. Yellow is such a light color though that sometimes you really have to add quite a bit of it to it because it's so light and dark. Blue is so dark. So I'm gonna add quite a bit of my yellow to that. And I mix it, I'm looking at it. That looks blue-green to me. So I'm gonna paint that here. Okay, I'm gonna wash my brush out, get a lot more yellow, try to make that green. Okay, good. Got a nice green color like Kermit the Frog. Okay, and wash my brush one more time and get a bunch of yellow because this one's yellow-green, so we're gonna make sure it's very, very yellow looking. And good. Okay, all you have to do now is just go back over some of your colors if you want to make them darker, or you can leave it just like this and you've got your watercolor color wheel just from mixing 3 colors. So I made 12 from just 3. The great thing is all colors can be mixed together, so you can experiment like putting green, well, you can try green and red, but you're going to end up with some neutrals. But let's say you want to get maybe a color that's a little more earthy for a green, and so you can actually make a little green, add some of this brown to it, so that tones the color down a little bit. So, and then you can practice it. That was way too brown, so I need more green because I just want it to kind of turn earthy. There we go. So that's something fun to think about whenever you are painting in watercolor and you're painting landscapes or other things. They're not always going to be these vibrant colors, but it's important to know how to start color mixing, and starting with primary, secondary, and tertiary are the first step. After that, it's a good idea to go ahead and play around with other colors like the tan, mixing tan with the green, or mixing other colors. But I will say, it always seems like a good idea to mix all the colors together. It's not. It ends up looking kind of like mud. So, you know, it seems like it's a good idea, put all the rainbow colors together and you get this amazing color. Yeah, that doesn't happen. It ends up being a brownish color, sometimes grayish, depending on the amount of what color's in there. So, okay, go ahead and get started on your color wheels.